Good evening, and thank you so much for coming to our session tonight. My name is Annika, and I am a first Chesapeake FTC and FRC alumni, and I want to welcome you all to today's first Chesapeake Chat, sponsored by Newport News Shipbuilding session. I want to thank the session sponsor, Newport News Shipbuilding, for making this chat possible. Just some housekeeping, we're going to let the speakers present first, and then open up for discussion questions later on if there is time. Please feel free to put questions in the comments throughout the chat, and we'll get to them all at the end of the session, time permitting. Today's chat features cool jobs with some first Chesapeake volunteers who are also alumni. In fact, 20% of our volunteers at Chesapeake are in fact first alumni. At this time, I want to introduce our two speakers for the evening. We have first, Nikki Desch, who is a computer engineer with NASA, and second, Kaitlyn Davey, a food scientist with McCormick & Co. We're going to first hear from Nikki.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nikki Desch, and I'm a computer engineer, like Annika said, at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. Specifically, right now, I am the project lead for the O2O ground segment that stands for Orion Artemis 2 Optical Communications, in which we will be demonstrating laser communications technology on the Artemis 2 mission, which is the first manned mission going back to the moon. In the way that when I'm also a first alum, I graduated high school in 2005. It's been a hot minute, and I was an alum of first robotic of FRC team 369 Code Red Robotics in Ithaca, New York. And I believe I started volunteering. And after graduating high school, took a little bit of a break, and I think I started volunteering again around 2014. I started off as just being, helping with field reset during I'm going to completely forget the game names, but I started just doing field reset, and next year it was the Recycle Rush game, and I was a scorer, and then after that I was asked to be a referee, and I refereed for I think about 4 seasons, and last season I got to do my first game as a head referee in Bethesda last year. Yeah, game. And so first has been a major influence on my life. It actually was when I was in high school, it got me into electrical engineering. I was well on my way to being like an accountant or a history major until my brother said, "Nikki, you should join the robotics team." And so I did. And that's why I became an electrical engineer. I studied it in high school and then college. I studied a little bit more in high school and then just studied it in college, and also went to grad school in it. And that's how I got my job right out of college, by being a communications engineer at a company called ITT. And they started off doing defense work, but they quickly switched me over to a NASA contract. And, I worked with them for about 10 years, and I guess the civil servants really liked me, and so the federal government picked me up about last year, and I've just spent pretty much my whole career now in the space communications realm, and it's been just an absolute blast. Another way that FIRST has really helped me is my time as a referee, and and volunteering, especially as a head referee. It gave me some really good management and communication skills that have become. I learned them as a referee, and especially and apply them very much so as a head referee. And I see them now that I'm in a management position at my job. I'm really utilizing a lot of the skills that I learned during my volunteering with FIRST. And so FIRST has just been I truly treasure every single moment that I've had with FIRST. So yeah, anyways, that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you so much for sharing. We're going to hear from Kaitlyn Davey next.
That's awesome. I'm a little bit newer in my career. My name's Kaitlyn Davey. I went to University of Maryland and got my degree in food science, my bachelor's, and this is actually my first full-time job working at McCormick as an associate food scientist. I did FLL in middle school. I did Vex Robotics, C-Perch, and then my favorite, of course, was FTC in Maryland. And I was on the team for about 3 years, and then I come back now and volunteer. I also am a head ref in Maryland, same as Nikki. So we both like head refereeing. I did a little bit of queuing, I did a little bit of judging, but refereeing is definitely where I found my niche. I love the rules, and of course getting to see the robots on the field, and also getting to interact with the students, because that's the best part. I'm also not that different in age from a lot of the students, so definitely I like to stay in the action. So I guess my role as a food scientist, I can explain a little bit more, but a lot of what I do is design tests or ways to test food products to help the processing be more efficient or consistent, or also to just support different functions of the company. So I work a lot on hot sauce, actually, which is, if you like hot sauce, let me know. Frank's Red Hot and Cholula, both owned by McCormick. And it's crazy the complexities that you see when working with these products. You get to do a lot of rheological testing, which is like complex viscosity, and a lot of different other analytical methods.
And that is super cool. Thank you both for sharing those details about your background and your time in first and your current careers. For participants, please feel free to put questions in the chat throughout the session. As there seem to be none right now, I'm going to ask the first question myself. So I'm a first year in college right now, and I think for me and a lot of other younger people in the programs right now, a big question that I have is, what advice would you give to your younger selves in going into a career or into college as a STEM major, especially as a woman in like a traditionally male-dominated space? I guess both of you can answer this question. And anyone can start, so feel free.
I was going to make Kaitlyn start because she's she's been there more recently. But if I could tell myself, I would say, if I could go back and tell my younger self, especially just starting off like in college and high school, I would say actually do the reading, like actually read the books, read the textbooks. There's a lot of stuff in there. Don't just like go and look for things that are like, okay, I'm just gonna get through the tests. Like actually read through everything. It's worth the time and effort that you put into reading. It's also when you think about something, think about really try to understand every single problem that is given to you. Like understand, not just try to understand like, the technical aspect, just the details and focus in on that. Try to focus on the larger picture for why is somebody asking you this question? And I think that that's something that I kind of missed when I was younger, is trying to understand the why something is important. And it's something I ended up learning much later and has been very helpful. Also, take writing courses. Please learn how to write, because emails are major. And if you can't communicate via email and, like a very concise, strong email, you're going to be very, very much struggle in your career. So I would say that would be the other one, is definitely take writing courses.
Super helpful. Thank you. Kaitlyn, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, I can give two different ones that are kind of related but contradictory if you think about it too much. So first one is, of course, confidence. As a younger woman in STEM, I'm still working on this, but just remember, like, your confidence. And this is not to say that we aren't confident in any way, but as a girl in a male-dominated field, it's important to remember that you know your stuff just as well as anyone else. And sometimes it takes time to grow into that. And at work, it can be difficult. You're presenting data, you're presenting these topics, and there are people older than you, and you do need to respect them and listen to their opinions. But it's also important to remember that you know your stuff and be confident in what you know. And my second one, if we're talking about like high school, college age, is that grades aren't always everything. And this is kind of what Nikki was saying too. Like, yes, your grades are important. They're important, but what's more important is that you understand the material, that you really know why you're learning this thing, and you're not just doing it to get the A grade. It's not worth getting all A's if you don't really understand what you're doing or why you're doing it, because at work, they don't care if you can get an 100%. They care if you can take down this complex problem, figure it out, break it down into different pieces, and then solve it. So that's my kind of, grades are important, but remember the other stuff too.
And that is really helpful, I think, especially as a first year in college. That is really important and relevant to me. So thank you for that. We have a question in the chat. If anyone at your work says, dang, I wish I had joined first, or I wish we had more first alumni, if either of you want to take this question.
Sure. I don't get those questions in particular, partially because I'm a little bit older. I get the comments that I get are, wow, I really wish my high school had that. Like that's so cool. You're so lucky to have had that. Like, I wish that, there was a program I could have gotten involved in, and, to like learn, like, just, and to have that experience of actually going through the full systems engineering process from start to finish, which is essentially what first offers you, from the game and getting your requirements through to execution and operations. Like, that is such a valuable experience that most engineers, they never actually get, especially when you hit the workforce, because like usually you're part of like a certain phase of a large project as opposed to actually being able to see a project from start to finish. So that's generally more so the comment that I get is, wow, I really wish I had had that option. So, you know, it's great to see that obviously everyone here is taking advantage of that option. And, you know, the more the people that we can get involved and have to also have that opportunity, the better.
Yeah, my experience is very similar. A lot of people are like, wait, I didn't know that existed in high school. Or maybe they knew they had a robotics team at their high school, but they didn't really know what it was, so they didn't join it. So I get a lot of that at work as well.
And that's really interesting. I feel like it's a really good opportunity that a lot of people just aren't exposed to or aren't aware of. And I think that that's kind of unfortunate given what a profound impact, which has obviously had on both of you and your professional goals and your successes thereof. Another question in the chat we have is whether you all interned in college, and if so, what your internships were in college.
I actually had a number of I had 2 internships. One was at IBM up in Poughkeepsie. And for that one, I was mostly just doing a lot of electronics testing on some of their I/O drawers that they were putting into their supercomputers, and it was a lot of basic. It was a lot of basic, you know, just doing like testing and stuff. It wasn't too much design work. My second internship was with ITT, and that one ended up that turned out to be the company that hired me on, and they were having us do. We were working with them on. So it was a lot. It had to do with managing the Department of Defense's electromagnetic spectrum utilization, and so as interns, we were given tasks to kind of work with this tool called STK to do some modeling of where some interference would happen if we were to switching if certain instruments would be switching frequencies to due to some reallocation of the RF spectrum. But I personally found the internships to be extremely fruitful and definitely, and they've truly helped my career. When you are at an internship, you often you'll find sometimes that depending on the internship, you don't want to go to like the stuffy intern events or whatever else. And, and people are like, oh, I don't want, I'm too cool for that. Well, turns out that I went to an event and I was the only intern from my company from my branch to show up to a Nationals baseball game. And that is how I met the VP of our branch, who turned out has pretty much shaped my entire career. She was the one that got me on, that made sure I was hired back. She, just because her and her husband took a serious interest in me, made sure I was hired back and got me and really helped mentor me throughout my entire career. She's now somebody that I work with like closely up at NASA headquarters. So, just that a small thing like that, just showing up and to a company event, when I was an intern turned out to be almost pretty much career changing for me.
That's amazing. That's really, really inspirational. And thank you for sharing that. Kaitlyn, what about you?
I also had 2 internships. My sophomore year, I interned at a seasoning development company, and I really enjoyed the internship. It was interesting. It was more of the, I'll call it the art side of food science. Food science is a really broad field, and that's a different topic, but that's more of the art side, the more foodie, intuitive side. And I really enjoyed it, but I think I learned from that I didn't want to work in that area. And then the next summer I interned at McCormick in the department that I'm currently working in. And that's more of the research side. And then I ended up taking a full-time role in that after I graduated as well.
That's amazing. I feel like the intern to professional employment pipeline is a really wonderful one to make use of if you have that available to you. Another question in chat here is, who was a major influence in your life to pursue a STEM career? And Nikki, we'll start with you again.
So I had 2 people that were kind of the major influence. One was my brother, because he was the one that convinced me to start on the robotics team when I was in high school. The other one was my grandfather. He was a civil engineer up at Cornell University. And he was one of the ones that ended up designing most of the underground systems there. And a lot of the bridges that you see are because of my grandfather. So it definitely wasn't my parents, that's for sure. They're into contracts and what else do they do? they're much more writers. My mom was an editor, so my parents were just like, well, who are these children that that came out of us? They're not even not relate not near not similar to us at all.
That's funny. For me, it was, I would say, my entire family. They're all STEM folk. My mom is actually a teacher and my dad's a computer engineer. So they're not both super STEMmy, but my mom homeschooled us. So she had a really big influence on helping us find opportunities. And I have two older siblings who started doing robotics before I did. And as a kind of a preteen, I was like, oh, my siblings do robotics. I don't really know if I want to do it. And then I joined in 7th grade doing VEX, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then kept doing it throughout. And my brother had a big impact on learning a lot of the skills. So we worked side by side on our team a lot. And he definitely helped kind of just like get me into the building, get me into the designing and everything. But yeah, definitely my mom and my whole family.
That's so sweet. I love like the familial influence on both of you doing STEM and robotics. That's really, really wonderful to hear. And one more question in chat here is, what do you both love most about your jobs? And Nikki, we'll start with you once more.
Oh my God, I love everything about my job. I probably have I think I've actually reached like a point where I'm in my dream job. Like it is just, I get to work with the smartest people every single day. Like I'm in a meeting and they're talking about things sometimes that I'm just like, it's like Greek to me. I'm like, what are you even talking about? But but it's so awesome because that means I'm learning this, about this field of optical communications that I didn't even know existed in college. Like we were all just so focused on RF. We never thought about, even just, about using laser communications for free space, com. Like I think it was very much in its infancy back then. And so it's great because it's like this job that takes these. Yeah, I mean, first off, you get to work with space stuff, which is really cool. You get to talk about like the moon and Mars in in normal conversations. You talk about talking to every time you see like a feed from astronauts, that came through these systems that have been routing down. You just get to talk and learn from these brilliant people every single day. I absolutely love my job. It's one of I like I and in working for the federal government, like obviously like it has its downsides in many ways, but at the same time, it gives so many opportunities to grow as an engineer. And they really want to focus in on making sure they're growing their staff as much as they possibly can, especially at NASA, because most of NASA work is done by contractors. So if they invest in a civil servant, they really want to grow them as a person and as an engineer, and so that they stay there for the rest of their career. So I love everything about my job.
That's so awesome. Oh, it's hard to pick one thing too. I feel like there's a lot of little aspects. I guess for me, I really love working on something that is like a consumer good that I can go into the grocery store and point at and be like, I helped make that better. And I also really like, this is kind of specific, but I love plants and industrial settings. And I get to go to plants pretty often and really like make a impact in the plant and like see someone's job get a little bit easier because of a little change that I made, and that's really cool to me.
That's amazing. I love that you both are so like passionate about the things you do. Kind of as a bit of a tangent from that answer, I think you both mentioned in your little blurbs that you referee pretty often. And I'm interested in knowing a little bit more about what brought you back to volunteering with First Chesapeake in particular.
What brought me back was, this is actually just kind of random. A friend of mine had said that she was planning to volunteer at, I think this is before we switched to the district model, at one of the regionals. I want to say it was at George Mason, back in the day. And it was, I think it might have been 2013, 14. I thought to myself, I'm like, oh, wait, I want to do that. I want to volunteer. Like I got time, I want to go do field reset and, help out and, whatever. And so and then I went to the Maryland one, and I ended up meeting. It's actually kind of funny. It's like there's like this whole like class of volunteers that started the same time, and just doing field reset, and it was so much fun, and I just got addicted to it. that's pretty much what got me back into it. I can't imagine not having first in my life now. It's like every year it comes around, it's just I get to focus on first for about 2 months, and like forget about the rest of the world. And it's just like it's such a great like it's just like such a great it's just such a great piece of my life. I absolutely love it.
That's really heartwarming. I love to hear that. Oh my gosh. Kaitlyn, what about you?
I honestly never stopped volunteering with First. I think even when I was in high school, like competing, we still volunteered or announced at competitions. And then when I went to college, I went to University of Maryland, which was nearby. So of course I had to come volunteer during winter break. And I think I started out doing some game announcing and stuff like that. And then when I was probably a senior, Jeff Kelbick, the Maryland head referee when it was First Maryland, invited me to come and shadow him as a referee and then eventually a head referee. And then it just kind of every year I come back.
That's really nice to hear as well. One more question in the chat here is whether y'all get the chance to interact with your former teams very often. And I guess if so, in what capacity do you guys do that?
So me, not so much, mostly because they're kind of far away. It's in upstate New York. So I interacted quite a bit when I just graduated because they were nearby and I still knew a lot of people on the team. I mentioned them I ended up emailing them a few years ago, but at this point, like pretty much everyone has changed. And now that you mention it, I would actually love to reach out to them again and see how they're doing. I do follow their progress though, in like any team, they have their good years and bad years. And, it's always fun to see them to, see how well they do. They used to actually come down this way for when we still had the regional setup. But, since we switched to the district model, it's not necessarily as worthwhile for an upstate New York team to drive down to Maryland. But yeah, but I still follow their progress. It's a great team. I love it.
Yeah, with my team being pretty local, I never mentored the team after I graduated just because of college and time constraints. I found that volunteering on weekends was more conducive to studying and everything. But I definitely would go back, and sometimes they would present their judging presentation to me and ask for advice or ask little questions and send stuff back and forth.
It's really sweet. I think I'm actually most looking forward to being able to help my old team do stuff in futures. And I feel like it's just a really heartwarming thing to see them grow and do better and succeed after you graduate. That's just a really motivating and inspirational thing, I think, to witness. That's about all the questions that we have time for from the audience today. We do have a challenge question for you all to test your memory today. So if you know the answer to this question, please put it in the chat box. And the first person to answer it correctly is going to receive a $10 Chick-fil-A gift card. So today's question is, who co-founded First with Dean Kamen? If you know it, just put it in the chat and it'll be really good. You'll get a gift card. It'll be so much fun. I'll give y'all a hint. He's super involved with gracious professionalism, or was super involved with gracious professionalism in First. Wears a lot of denim, a lot of denim. We have some helpful emojis in the chat as well. Let's think about what these emojis could indicate. And we have a winner. Oh my gosh, congratulations to JJJARIWALA. Woody Flowers was the co-founder of First with Dean Kamen. October 12th is Walk Like Woody Day to honor his legacy of gracious professionalism on the First community. You'll receive a direct message in chats from First Chesapeake so we can get your gift card in the mail to you as soon as possible. Congratulations. I really want to thank today's speakers, Nikki, Desch, and Kaitlyn, Davey, for being with us today. We really appreciate your time. And as a reminder for all participants, the 2021-2022 Women in STEM scholarships sponsored by Dominion Energy are open for applications. The scholarship is open to First Chesapeake District, which is DC, Maryland, and Virginia, female junior and senior FTC and FRC team members who are competitors in either last season 2020-2021 or this current season 21-22. The application deadline is November 15th. So please email contact us at firstchesapeake.org for details. That's contact us at firstchesapeake.org. We also want to again thank our First Chesapeake Chat sponsor, Newport News Shipbuilding, for the generous support of both this program and our 2022 First Chesapeake District Championship. Thank you all so much for coming to the session. Thank you again to Kaitlyn and Nikki for your incredible contributions, both to First Chesapeake, and STEM overall. And please stay tuned for the next chat titled Learn Something New, Alumni Ambassadors Program, sponsored by Booz Allen Hamilton, starting in just a few minutes.